What do I write about? How do I get my words down? Today's episode is part 2 of our 4-part series where we are laying out 20 amazing writing tips to really support you on your writing journey. And today, part 2 is going to be focused on 5 tips to help you get your words down. Because if we don't have the words, we don't have a book and we don't have our writing and our voices to be shared out in the world. So I am glad you're here. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part series where we are unpacking 20 writing tips to really get you activated in your writerly self, your embodied writing experience. Here to really support you in going from what if to full-blown writer or deepening who you already are as a writer. Part 1, go back and listen to it if you have not already. We focused on getting started. We focused on the setup and gave you 5 amazing tips that is going to help you get started, get going with your writing. And these were all tips that my team and I created. We are all published writers. We support other published writers. And so we gleaned and talked about our experiences and came up with 5 for each episode. And we're on part 2 right now. Today is going to be focused on getting the words down. So you've gotten started, you've activated yourself, maybe for your first writing book project or your next one. Now it's like, how do I keep it going? How do I actually get the words down? So this first tip that I'm going to share, first of 5, comes from Taylor, who's our behind the scenes guru. She keeps us all in check. She makes all the things that work for us at Synergy Wellness and with our embodied writing experiences. She keeps us all running smoothly and keeps everything going. And her first tip is to word vomit without judgment. Let me tell you what a word vomit is. So it is quite literally what it sounds like, which is you are going to just let whatever is showing up, show up. And I love her point about without judgment. The biggest killer of getting words down is to try to get the right words down, know what they are, think they're the right words, make them sound in a way that like somebody else is going to be able to understand all at the same time. Word vomiting is literally just letting whatever just pouring out. And sometimes when I'm sitting down to write and I don't know what wants to come up for the day or I'm not quite sure what I want to work on, I just start writing about that. I don't know what I'm writing today. I'm hungry. I'm not sure I want to do this. And the point is, it's kind of like the first mile of your walk or your run. It just gets the juices flowing. It just gets the blood pumping. It literally gets your hands and fingers moving on the keys or with the pen or pencil across the paper. And the thing is you can make it pretty later. It is not about perfect words. It is about words, period. So tip number 1 in getting the words down is get them down. Just let them out. Let anything and everything that's showing up. Try not to censor yourself. Try not to judge. You can always go back and change it later. Tip number 2 for today, tip 2 of 5, is talk to yourself in your writing about your writing. This is imperative because as you're writing, you're in a moment, you're capturing something that's showing up. Maybe you're telling a story, you're remembering a part of your process that you want to share in the book. But when you come back to it later, you want to be able to put yourself as best you can back in that moment of what you were trying to create. So this is going to look like messy notes in the margin, comments in your digital Google Doc. Leave yourself notes, especially when you start to get stuck, okay? The goal is just to keep yourself going when you're trying to get your words down. And so leaving yourself notes allows you to go, I'm not sure where I want to go here, or here's what I want to remember when I come back to this, and then you can move on and keep going. So talking to yourself in your writing about your writing is going to help you keep the momentum going and actually help you keep getting more words down. So that's tip number 2 for today. Tip number 3 is from Dr. Cynthia Urbanski. I remember her talking about this. Be unapologetically messy. And my analogy for this that helps give a visual is it's kind of like cooking. Right? Think about if you're creating a meal, and maybe it's even either a meal that you've cooked you're cooking for the first time, or maybe it's a big meal and you know all the parts and pieces and you've done it a bunch of times. But there is mess, right? Sometimes when we are cooking. And that is where the magic happens. And here's the thing. Your reader is not going to see, right, your quote kitchen, right? The people that you serve the meal to, even if it's just for yourself, when they're eating, they don't see the kitchen, right? They're sitting there enjoying the meal. And your readers are the same way. So let your writing, your process, your how you get the words down be messy versus trying to make it perfect from the start, right? We're not going to see that there were ingredients strewn everywhere. We're not going to see the sweat, the tears, the multiple glasses of wine, the dozens of coffee cups, whatever the things are that are supporting you in getting your words down, or like this meal analogy, helping you cook that beautiful meal. Your readers are going to see the final writing, the final book. So when you're drafting and revising and just getting words down, let yourself get messy. Let yourself word vomit. Let yourself talk it out, and don't worry about if it is, quote, right. So that's tip number 3. Be unapologetically messy with your writing. Tip number 4 is going to be around how to start to focus your writing a little bit. And one of the tips is to start by telling a story. So sometimes when we're thinking of something, we have an idea, it's inspired from an experience that we had. So we could start by telling a story about that, right? What was that experience? So when you're looking to get words down, maybe you've already tried tip number 1, word vomit. Maybe tip number 3, you've been messy with it. And now you're like, I want it to have a little bit more clear direction. Start with a story, right? Or if you're trying to start somewhere in a chapter or a paragraph or the beginning of your book, start with a story and then write another one and another one and another one. Storytelling, story writing, just sharing your experiences is a great way to get words down. So that is tip number 4. And tip number 5, our final tip for this episode, is kind of along those lines, which is start with what you know, right? So tip number 4, you know your story or you know your experiences, you know those of your clients. So you're starting there. But start with what you know. What has been your experience? What do you have knowledge about? And write about that. And then be willing to ask questions in your writing about what you don't know. Ultimately, you are the expert of your lane, of your area. So excavate that. So a way to get words down is to dive deep into that and start to explain it on the page. So starting with what you know and then using questions for things that maybe you don't know. We often think we have to, in our writing, be like the end all be all. We have to have the answers, but it's nice to have a balance of both, to offer questions as well as the things that we do know about. So that is tip number 5. So let's review. Tip number 1 for getting your words down is to word vomit without judgment. Tip number 2, talk to yourself in your writing, about your writing, leaving yourself notes of some sort. Number 3 to go right along with that is to be unapologetically messy. So don't worry about the process, right? Your readers aren't going to see that part. So let yourself be messy in whatever process works for you to get words down. Sometimes I got to stand up and do a dance party and it's messy, but that helps me keep going and get words down. Number 4 is when you're not sure where to start by telling a story and then tell another one and another one and another one. Really helps you get words down. And then number 5 is to start with what you know. Really share from your experience and then be willing to ask questions and share questions and write questions about anything that maybe you aren't as experienced in. So those are your next 5 tips out of the 20 that are your writing tips to really support you on your journey. And the focus today was all about getting your words down. So what did you like? What are you curious about? What have you tried? What are you going to try? You know we want to hear about it. So be sure to tag us. Be sure to leave a review. Be sure to let us know what resonated most with you. All right, we are heading into part 3 in the next episode. So I will see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Written Compass. If you are enjoying this content, do me a favor and go and review the podcast. This allows me to share and get these messages out to the people who really need them, who we want to read their books in the future. You can also go and share your thoughts and tag me at @ShaynaHartman_ on Instagram. Again, this is just a way for us to get connected and share the writing love. And if you know that you are ready to write your book, that message that's been burning inside of you for a long time, then I want to talk to you. My team and I want to talk to you. Head on over to ShaynaHartman.com and click Work with Us. From there, you'll see an application to explore and see if writing your book is your next best step.